everybody. This is Pat Mesiti live at 5, and I have a very interesting, very powerful, very insightful article that I found on news.com. Did China trick the world into committing economic suicide? As the global community continues to grapple with the fallout from the coronavirus pandemic and the economic catastrophe caused by the associated lockdowns imposed by governments around the world, a chilling new theory has emerged. It goes like this. China, in an enormous disinformation campaign spread via social media and through compromised voices in Western politics, science and medicine aggressively pushed for other nations to follow its lead, with the goal of intentionally destroying their economies. According to Michael Segner, a lawyer and researcher based in Atlanta, Georgia, in an article for Tablet magazine, Segner has laid out a disturbing timeline of evidence that, if true, hints at what could be the most effective, devastating physiot carried out by a world government. By promoting fraudulent data, aggressively deploying information, and flexing its institutional clout, Beijing transformed the snake oil of lockdowns into science, crippling rival economies, expanding its influence, and sowing an authoritarian values, Segner claimed on Twitter. The science of lockdowns is far from settled. Sweden, which infamously rejected calls to shut down schools, bars, restaurants through the pandemic, has, according to some experts, largely vindicated, despite recording more than 5,800 fatalities. And I might say, with COVID or of COVID, let me say that, one of the worst near the start of the crisis. The country's daily rolling death is now negligible. Other experts, however, including Professor Peter Collington from the Australian National University, cautions against the Swedish model. When the CCP moved to place Wuhan, the city of 11 million in the eastern Hubei province, where COVID-19 first emerged under mass house arrest in late January, the World Health Organization described it as unprecedented in public health history and new to science. A month later, WHO enthusiastically endorsed China's lockdown strategy as a framework for the governments around the world to follow. Copy China's response to COVID-19, Canadian WHO official Bruce Orland said on February 2026. In the meantime, social media had been flooded with terrifying leaked videos appearing to show apocalyptic scenes from the virus epicenter. Bodies stacked in hospitals, hallways, and people collapsing in the street. The New York Times revealed in June that Twitter had removed tens of thousands of fake accounts that were being used in coordinated effort to spread the CCP's message, with a particular focus on Italy, the European nation with the closest ties to China. Remember, China produces a lot of the exports of Italy, such as fashion, etc. I'll leave that one alone, but there's a lot to say about that, and direct flights into Wuhan from Milan, by the way. Segner described the New York Times piece, which showed how vast networks of suspicious accounts first began touting the benefits of China's responses in early March as a smoking gun of the genesis of the coronavirus lockdown. The fact that CCP's disinformation campaign focused on Italy is crucial, Segner wrote. The rest of the world followed Italy's lead. On March 9, Italy became the first country outside of China to implement the WHO's advice. Chinese officials who visited Italy a few days later advised the lockdowns were not strict enough and there were still too many people and behaviors on the streets for it to improve. At the same time, Italy was bombarded with Chinese propaganda. One analysis of tweets from March 11 to 23 found that nearly half of all posts using the hashtag Forza Gini Italia, or Go China, Go Italy, and more than 1/3 of those with the hashtag Grazie China, which means thank you China, came from robots or bots. It wasn't just Italy. The New York Times noted how one Twitter user, Amisha Kataki, posted a video on March 21 of Chinese workers disinfecting streets. At this rate, China will be back in action very soon. It may be faster than the world expects, the tweet said. The relatively benign video was shared hundreds of thousands of times with quote tweets in various languages and using nearly identical phrasing to complain about being told by governments to merely wash our hands, in contrast to China's strict lockdowns. Twitter deleted almost 170,000 accounts linked to this activity, flagged by an Israeli analyst company called NextDim as a likely state-sponsored, but Segner shows how hundreds of similar examples can still be found with a simple research. This is what the UK should be doing, not just washing our hands. One tweet from March still reads, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson this week announced a host of new coronavirus restrictions expected to last for 6 months. Singer notes how Mr. Johnson, who imposed a lockdown on March 23, appears to have been targeted after initially opting to follow Sweden's herd mentality strategy. On March 13th, suspicious accounts began storming his Twitter feed and likening his plan to genocide, he wrote. This language almost never appears in Johnson's feed before March 12, and several of his accounts were hardly active before then. But China's propaganda efforts went far beyond social media. In July, FBI Director Chris Wray revealed American politicians had been explicitly approached by CCP to endorse China's strategy. We have heard from federal, state, and even local officials that Chinese diplomats are aggressively urging for China's handling of the COVID-19 crisis, he told the Hudson Institute. Yes, this is happening at both federal and state levels. Not long ago, we had a state senator who was recently even asked to introduce a resolution supporting China's response to the pandemic. Last month, Australia announced a sweeping inquiry into Chinese infiltration of the university sector, after revelations by the Australian newspaper that dozens of the country's leading researchers had been co-opted into the CCP's secretive 1,000 Talents program. In the US, leading science and medical research institutions, including the National Institute of Health, the National Science Foundation, and Harvard University, have been rocked by revelations of undisclosed financial ties to the Chinese government. Back in May, Richard Horton, editor-in-chief of the esteemed medical journal, The Lancet, told Chinese state and that China's lockdown was not only the right thing to do, but also showed other countries how they should respond in face of such acute threat. As citizens in the USA, Australia, and the UK, and other Western countries struggle through various degrees of lockdowns, China, it seems, must be having the last laugh. Last month, thousands of people were seen crammed into a water park for an enormous summer pool party in the regional epicenter of Wuhan, where there's been reportedly no community transmission since May. This week, young revelers were photographed packed together on the dance floor at Wuhan's famous nightclubs. The key question in all of this is why China went through such extreme lengths to spread propaganda about the success of its lockdown strategy, and why it was so keen for other countries to follow its lead. The most benign possible explanation for the CCP's campaign for global lockdown is that the party aggressively promoted the same lie internationally as well as domestically, that lockdowns worked. Well, we know that's not the case. And then there's the possibility that by shutting down the world, Chinese President Xi Jinping, who envisions a socialist future rule with China as its setup, he knew exactly what he was doing. Cripple the world's economies, flood social media, spread a fear campaign, and just maybe China can rule us all and buy us all back. This is Pat Mesiti. Sometimes you just got to think. Have a prosperous life.